Bismillah. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulillah. Nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Wa man tamassaka bi sunnatihi ila yawmiddin. Thumma amma ba'd. Alhamdulillah ala ni'mat al-Islami wa sunnah. All praise and thanks belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for guiding us to Islam and for guiding us to the Sunnah. Wallahi, this is a ni'mah. This is a ni'mah that is azima, bila shak wa bila rayb. It is incumbent that we show thanks unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Banillaha fa'bud wa kun min ash-shakirin. But rather worship Allah and be from those who show thanks. Be from those who show gratitude unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We weren't able to finish everything we had prepared for the last class, yesterday's class. We weren't able to go over everything we wanted to go over inside of that class. So bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, we're going to take and finish what we wanted to mention there, and if there is time, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, we would like to touch upon some of what we had intended originally to mention in today's sitting. Again, I want to remind everyone that, and I encourage everyone to lend to me an attentive ear. If they have paper and a pen, to please have it at their ready. If they don't have a paper and a pen, then to write notes inside of the memo app inside of your smartphones, so that some of the benefit can be caught and remembered. And I want everyone, as they hear the ahadith and the ayat, to really focus and contemplate and reflect on themselves. Reflect on themselves and that which will better themselves and enrich their lives. Grab some benefit that they may convey to their wives, to their children, and others. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And remember, the reason that we want to grab this benefit is so that we may implement it. Now, and then convey it. Because without such, we will be incapable of benefiting others. Because al-faqidu shay la yu'tihi. The one who is deprived of something, he does not have the ability to give it, because he don't have it to begin with. So this is just the mindset of what I want everyone to be in, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Yesterday we were looking at the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, where the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he narrated that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said, لَكُلُّ عَمْلِ ابْنِ آدَمْ لَهُ إِلَّا الصِّيَامِ فَإِنَّهُ لِي. We want to look at this particular sentence first and foremost today. Now, that all of the actions of the son of Adam are for him except for fasting. There is some benefit that we gain from this. There is some benefit that we gain from this. Now, and we want to start here with this, and then we'll transition back into exactly where we left off yesterday. Ala kulli hal, this is important that we understand this, because it will give us, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, a renewed appreciation for the fasting. And bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, it will be an encouragement for us to fast and to be very diligent about our fast. The meaning of this, because I'm pretty sure we heard this hadith a lot, right? One could be safe to say perhaps every Ramadan we've heard this hadith a number of times. Every Ramadan and prior to Ramadan and the likes of these pre-Ramadan workshops and the like, we hear this hadith. Naam, we hear this hadith. This hadith is tremendously important, but what does it mean? All of the actions of the son of Adam are for him except for fasting, for verily it is for me. What does that mean? ما معنى هذا الكلام? What does this kalam mean? It's important that we know, and especially this, why? Because we hear it a lot. And it's aib. It's aib. It's wrong, shameful to hear something a lot or to recite something a lot, but you don't know what it means. So what does this mean? قال العلامة عثيمين رحمة الله عليه والمعنى أن الصيام يخصه الله من بين سائر الأعمال. Allah. MashaAllah. طيب على كل حال, what does this mean? Is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has specified the fasting, as-siyam, from the other actions, from the other righteous good deeds. That fasting is specified, right? لأنه أي الصيام أعظم العبادات إطلاقا. And this is because fasting, it is the greatest of the acts of worship, period. Fasting is the greatest of the acts of worship, period. فإنه سر بين الإنسان وربه. Because fasting, it is a secret between the slave, between the individual, the human being, and between his Lord. It's a secret between him and his Lord. نعم. لأن الإنسان لا يعلم إذا كان صائما أو مفطرا. Because the individual, you don't know whether he's fasting or not. Right? Just by looking at a person, you don't know whether he's fasting or not. You don't know. Whereas the other actions, upon looking at a person, you can tell what he's doing. If a person is reading the Qur'an, you're looking at him, you can tell he's reading the Qur'an. Now, a person he's studying, reading a hadith, you look at him, you can tell he's reading a hadith. A person is praying, you look upon him, you can tell he's praying. See? Person making hajj, tell he's making hajj, making umrah, tell he's making umrah, so on and so forth. So the other acts of worship, they're different, you see, from fasting. Whereas fasting, a person could be fasting and it's not known whether he's fasting or he's not fasting. No one knows. Naam, huwa ma'anas wala yu'lam bihi. He's with the people and no one knows. No one knows why. Niyatuhu ba'qina, because his intention is inside of his heart. His intention is in his heart. So we can't see that, right? So this is a secret between him and between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَلِذَلِكَ كَانَ أَعْظَمْ إِخْلَاصًا. And for this you will find that it is greater in the ikhlas. Naam. And I want you to keep this in mind, because the ulama, they mention that those secret acts of worship, the secret acts of worship that a person does that nobody else knows about, right? Like the person gets up in the middle of the night, everybody in the house is sleeping, no one in the house knows he's even up or she's even up. To pray from Qiyamul Layl at that time is good, and it has virtue. Why? Because it has the potential of having greater ikhlas in it. Because a person's doing it, no one knows about it. So there he's doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, bila shak wa bila rayb. Only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Na'am. Ar-riya, showing off, is not there. Because riya is the showing off, that's what is seen. A person does something that people can see it. There's no chance for riya because no one can looking at him. Everyone is sleeping inside the house. Na'am. and the like. So those secret actions, the ulama, they encourage us to do those secret actions. Do those secret actions that don't nobody know about. Na'am. And the like. Also from the secret actions, this is just a benefit, a side benefit. One of the Qur'an teachers, he mentioned to me many years ago, he said is that the statement of La ilaha illallah, that when one analyzes the statement of La ilaha illallah, he finds that all of the letters contained therein are tongue letters. All of the letters in La ilaha illallah, they are tongue letters. Meaning that in order to properly pronounce these letters, you need not but move your tongue. You need not but move your tongue. Right? So therefore, you don't have to necessarily move your mouth. So you can say La ilaha illallah without moving your mouth, and no one will know what you're saying. You understand? He said, so this is a good way to what? To secretly make dua unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a manner that even those who are with you don't know what you're doing. This is an excellent opportunity, because it hints to what? Those secret acts of worship. It hints to those secret acts of worship because they contain therein what? More ikhlas. So the fasting, getting back to fasting, it has more ikhlas in it because it is a secret between the abd and between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that was what we were talking about yesterday. What is that? Fasting helps reinforce, is a reinforcing of Tawheed. And Tawheed, bila shak bila rayb, is the greatest thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has commanded us with. Tawheed is the purpose for which the creation was created. Tawheed, the purpose that the prophets were sent. Tawheed, the purpose that the books were revealed, so on and so forth. Tawheed is the greatest aspect of our existence, is what is to establish the Tawheed. To establish Tawheed. So being that fasting has in it greater ikhlas, then it shows you the superiority of fasting, and that fasting is not like other acts of worship. So from one standpoint, this is the meaning. Because it contains a greater level of ikhlas, it's not like other acts of worship, so therefore it is for Allah. So Allah Ta'ala, He says, إِلَّا الصِّيَامْ فَإِنَّهُ لِي, except for fasting, for verily it is for me. Now, this is one aspect of the meaning. فَاخْتَصَّهُ اللَّهُ مِنْ بَيْنَ سَائِرِ الْأَعْمَالِ. So Allah Ta'ala has specified fasting over the other actions. So a person can come in and say, what's one of the meanings that fasting is for me? Is because Allah has specified fasting from the other actions. Has specified fasting from the other actions. So one of the meanings, again, one of the meanings for that all of the actions of the son of Adam are for him except for fasting, then verily it is for me, and I will reward him for it, is that what? Is that fasting is only and solely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He specified it away from the other actions. That's one of the meanings. That makes sense? Another meaning goes back to the hadith itself, is that the hasana bi'ashri amthaliha ila 700 ضعف, that the action is multiplied by 10 times all the way up until 700 times. Right? Is that the action, the regular good deeds outside of fasting, they are multiplied from 10 times all the way up to 700 times. Fasting is different. There's an exception for fasting, because the multiplication for fasting is far beyond 700 times. Allah Ta'ala knows best what is the multiplication of fasting. Now, so this is another difference between fasting and between the other actions, is that fasting is multiplied more than 700 times. It could be multiplied more than 700 times. Whereas the other actions is from 10 to 700. That makes sense? So this also enters into the meaning that fasting is for me, وَأَنَا أَجْزِي بِهِ, and I will reward for it. and I will reward for it. Meaning what? More than the 700 times. أضعافا multiplication كثيرة. A lot of multiplication, more than the 700 times. Naam. Also from the meaning, وَقَالَ بَعْضُ الْعُلَمَاء, and some of the ulama, they say, and I want you to really pay attention to this, because this shows you one of the identifying characteristics of fasting and how it is different from the other acts of worship. وَقَالَ بَعْضُ الْعُلَمَاء, some of the ulama, they say, وَمَعْنَاهُ إِذَا كَانَ اللَّهُ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ وَكَانَ عَلَى الْإِنسَانِ مظالم للعباد فإنه يؤخذ للعباد من حسناته إلا الصيام. Allahu Akbar. Is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment, if there is an individual who has oppressed others and he owes other people something, right? Because remember, Yawmul Qiyamah, that's the day the debts are going to be paid. Yawmul Din, the day the debts are due. Correct? But it's also a day where there's what? There's no money. There's no money. So if someone stole from somebody, you can't give his property back now. That's the opportunity is done. If he took someone's wealth, he can't give the wealth back. That's gone now, right? If he slandered someone, backbit someone, lied about someone, stole from someone, swindled and cheated someone, so on and so forth, there's no what do you call it? You can't make no rectification for that right now, Yawmul Qiyamah, by giving that thing back, or so on and so forth. There's no restitution at that point by giving back what you took from him inside the dunya. Except for what? What's the only thing you have to be given is what? Deeds. That's it, deeds. So if you stole from somebody now, you owe him deeds. You lied against someone, you owe him deeds. You slandered someone, you owe him deeds. You hit and beat and abuse someone, deeds, you owe him deeds. Right? You verbally abuse someone, you owe them deeds. So on and so forth. Any infringement now is going to be paid in deeds. Yawmul Qiyamah. So if an individual now, right, and this now it gives you, it should really encourage and get you excited and enthusiastic about what? About fasting Ramadan. Because see, if you owe somebody Yawm al-Qiyamah and now you got to pay them, they will be paid. Allah Ta'ala will take from your deeds and pay them from all of your deeds except fasting. They can't get your fasting. The sadaqah you gave, the salah you prayed, okay, maybe they'll take from that. But the fasting, no, that's yours. They can't get that. They won't take from the fasting. Naam. So it will be taken from the deeds but not the fasting. فَإِنَّهُ لَا يُخَذْ مِنْهُ شَيْءٍ. Nothing will be taken from the fasting. Why? لِأَنَّهُ لِلَّهِ. Because the fasting was for Allah. So this enters into the meaning that fasting belongs to Allah. لِأَنَّ الصِّيَامِ لِلَّهِ وَلَيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ. It is for Allah, it's not for the human beings. Naam. Shaykh Uthaymeen, he said, وَهَذَا مَعْنَ جَيِّدٍ. He said, and this meaning is good. This meaning is excellent. Now this is an encouragement so that an individual knows whatever he puts forward from fasting, that is not subject to be taken away from it in the event you owe somebody something Yawm al-Qiyamah. So you know that's yours. That'll be there. Why? Because when you did that, Allah Ta'ala said that was for him. Right? So that's beautiful, is it not? Now we don't want to owe nobody nothing Yawm al-Qiyamah, period. But in the event we got to pay somebody something, you want to at least know that you're going to keep something, correct? So if an individual increases in his fasting, right, then this is an indication and a sign of what? That in bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, they won't go bankrupt Yawm al-Qiyamah. Right? They got fasting still in their account. That's beautiful. You understand? That is an encouragement right there, and it shows how fasting is not like other actions. So these three meanings are from the meanings that enter into what is meant by that fasting is for me. Now, remember yesterday we mentioned that the ikhtilaf is of two types: ikhtilaf to Bad and ikhtilaf to Newark. Right? Ikhtilaf to Bad is the ikhtilaf that one opinion is wrong. Somebody's wrong, right? And then you have the ikhtilaf to nowhere, where they're all right. They're all right. There's different angles, different of what is correct. Now, when you look at the meanings that enter into what is meant by that fasting is for me and I will reward for it, you find that all three of these could be taken together. So therefore, the ulama mentioned that what? So therefore it means what? All three. Because it's not like you take one to the detriment of the other, but they can all coexist and all simultaneously be there. So therefore what? The meaning is what? All three. All three is from the meaning bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Na'am. So fasting bila shak wa bila rayb is something that is tremendous. Fasting is of extreme importance. Na'am. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His noble book, He says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe. When a believer hears this now, his ears should be open now. They should be, very attentive of what is being said. Allah Ta'ala, He says, كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامِ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ. That fasting has been written upon you, as it was written upon those who came before you. Before we continue, before we finish, what is meant by kutiba? What is meant by kutiba? Written upon you. Because it being written upon you, meaning what? Meaning what? Furidah. Meaning it's fard. It's been made wajib upon you. It's obligatory upon you. So I want you to write in your notes that the meaning of kutiba is furidah. That it has been made obligatory upon you. Fasting is obligatory upon you. Now, as it was prescribed to those who came before you. There's a lot of benefit contained in this ayah, but because of time, and I don't want to take from the time of my beautiful brothers, we're going to just give you some pieces. Is that Shaykh Uthaymeen, he mentioned that the mere fact that Allah Ta'ala informed us that fasting was made obligatory upon us, like was made obligatory upon those who came before us, it gives the heart content. Why? Because by Allah informing us of that, this shows Allah's gentle treatment to His creatures, because He's informing us that we are not alone in this, that there are others who also fasting was written upon them. And when you know that there are others who share with you in a thing, it makes it easier upon you, it makes it more lighter upon the soul. Now if you reflect upon calamity, for example, and fasting is a beauty. Fasting is something that is great, it's awesome, it's tremendous. But if you go to the flip side and you reflect upon calamity, one of the things that helps people when dealing with calamity is to know that they're not by themselves. Right? It's to know that they're not by themselves. One of the things that helps the believer dealing with the calamity, you may hear the ulama, they say the statement is that what? Is that worse has happened to better. Now, when you look at the Anbiya, look at the Rusul, look at what the lives that they had and how difficult it was and how rough and tough and so on and so forth. So no matter what we may be going through in our daily lives, when you reflect upon the Anbiya and the Rusul and what they went through, you realize worse has happened to better. So that helps you better cope and deal with what you're going through. Correct? Right. Now, if a good tiding comes to you, a benefit comes to you, and those who you love, also that benefit goes to them, that helps increase you in your joy. Right? Ala sabili mithal. If someone came to you and said, we give you a house, beautiful house, we gave it to you. Right? You become happy. Alhamdulillah, got a nice house. But if they come and they say, and we're going to give your mother a house, and we're going to give your auntie a house, and we're going to give your children houses, now you're even more happy. Even though those houses are not yours, but now you're more happy because not only am I getting a house, but my mother gets a house, my children get homes, and my aunts and uncle get homes. Subhanallah, now you're even more overjoyed and happy. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this ayah, He informs us that fasting has been written upon us as it was written upon those who came before, because what? This is from those things that bring joy to the heart of the believers, knowing that fasting has been written upon all of the believers ever, was upon them to fast. So this makes us even more happy, right? It makes you even more happy to know that what, for lack of a better term, that what you're part of a legacy of fasting with the believers. It makes you more happy. Correct? Allahu Akbar. Naam. Shaykh Uthaymeen rahmatullah alayhi says, فَوَجَّهُ اللَّهُ الْخِطَابِ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ, that Allah Ta'ala, He addresses the believers. He addresses the believers. Now I want everyone to open up their ears and listen good. Why? Why Allah Ta'ala address the believers here? Why is the nida here? Why is the calling here? Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe. Why is the call here addressing those who believe? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Qur'an, He calls by different things, right? Ya ayyuhan nas, O human beings. Ya ayyuhal insan, O humans, and the like. O mankind, O humans. But this address here is what? Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe, showing us that there is a connection between the iman and between that which is going to be mentioned next. So why is it addressed to the believers? لماذا? Shaykh Uthaymeen, he says, لأن الصيام رمضان من مقتضيات الإيمان, because fasting Ramadan is from that which is necessitated by iman. It is necessitated by iman that you fast Ramadan. لأن صيام رمضان يكمل به الإيمان, because fasting in Ramadan, by way of it, a person, he completes his iman. By what? By fasting in Ramadan. When a person hears this and he hears this connection, then this is what? This is an encouragement to he or she to fast Ramadan. This makes you really want to fast Ramadan when you see the connection between the fasting of Ramadan and between the iman. The Shaykh, he says لأن ترك الصيام رمضان ينقص به الإيمان, because when a person does not fast Ramadan, then that will decrease his iman. It will have an ill effect upon his iman. And of course this is speaking about those individuals who don't fast and they have the ability to fast. This is not talking about those individuals who they are not able to fasting. So those who have a sickness that is perpetual, that they don't anticipate any type of cure from it in their lifetime, then these people, they're not allowed to fast. They're not allowed to fast. So for them, because they can't fast, what do? Then they feed a poor person every day in its stead. So they still have the khair that they're going to get, but their khair comes from feeding people because they can't fast. So for a person who has diabetes, for example, they can't fast. Because the sugar, it dropped, then what happened? They're under threat of going into a diabetic coma, which could result in death. Allah Ta'ala wants ease for us. He does not want for us difficulty. So if a person has a condition that doesn't allow them to fast, like certain stomach conditions and ailments and so on and so forth, certain conditions and sicknesses where a person is required to take medicine regularly throughout the day on certain period of times, and if they don't take it, it has very detrimental effects upon their health, they cannot fast. So we're not talking about these individuals. But a person who has the ability to fast and he doesn't fast, then bila shak bila rayb, that will decrease his iman. Because with Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, what is iman? What's iman? It's for you guys. Iman is what? Actions, limbs, actions of the tongue, statements of the tongue, and actions of the heart. Wait, what else? That's correct. Iman is what? Statements of the tongue, actions of the limb, belief in the heart. What else? It means faith, ahsan. But what else?
Prayer.
No.
Increase and decrease.
Now, it increases and it decreases. Like, it goes up with what?
Good deeds.
Good deeds, obedience. It goes up. Bad deeds, what it do?
Go down, disobedience.
Go down, disobedience. Na'am. Like, the ulama, they have it sitta nunat. They put it together, sitta nunat. 6 noons, right? No, khamsa nunat, 5 noons. Khamsa nunat, 5 noons. Right? And because each thing ends in noon. Al-iman, amal, al-iman, let's go first. Al-iman, qawl bil-lisan. See? Lisan ends in noon. Qawl bil-lisan. Amal bil-arkan. I'tiqad al-janan. يزيد بطاعة الرحمن وينقص بطاعة الشيطان. 5 noons. That iman is a statement of the tongue. Huh? Lisan. Lisan. No. Right. Action of the arkan. Action of the limbs. Arkan. No. Right? 2 noons. Right. I'tiqad al-janan. Janan, heart. Belief in the heart. No. Janan. No. Right. It increases with obedience to Ar-Rahman. It increases with obedience to Ar-Rahman. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How many noons is that so far? 4. And it goes down with obedience to Shaitan. Noon. So that's why they call it 5 noons. Now, but that's Iman. So if a person doesn't fast Ramadan, that's a sin. Correct? So that's going to do what to his Iman? Which one? Decrease. Decrease with the D, right? Not the N one. The increase is up, decrease down. Right? It's going to decrease, right? Or the I one. That's the N, right? N sound, I, increase, decrease. Right? Huh? Don't get me confused now, man. I start, make up my own spelling for stuff. So, not fasting is going to decrease a person's iman because he's making sins now. He's making sin. They're going to decrease the iman, and it is incumbent that we safeguard our iman. We safeguard our iman, and we safeguard our iman by doing righteous good deeds and staying away from sin. If we fall into sin, what do? We repent. Nah, we make tawbah unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Na'am. So with this, if a person doesn't fast in Ramadan, it decreases his iman. The Shaykh Uthaymeen says, وَاخْتَلَفَ الْعُلَمَاء فِيمَا لَوْ تَرَكَهُ تَهَاوُنًا. The ulama, they differ. If a person leaves off fasting due to laziness, and it's important we understand this. They differ if a person leaves off the fast because he's lazy. Now, if a person leaves off the fast obstinately, he said, I'm not fasting Ramadan because you don't got to. Do the ulama differ about that person? No. Because that person's what?
Arrogantly.
He's arrogantly. That's a safe answer. But the person is what? He's a kafir. He's a disbeliever. He has to make kufr. If a person says ain't no such thing as Ramadan, fasting in Ramadan, that person's a kafir. The ulama don't differ about this person. The person that doesn't fast absently, then this person's a kafir. There's no ikhtilaf there. The ikhtilaf comes if a person doesn't fast but is out of laziness. He said, I know I should fast Ramadan, but I just don't, for whatever reason. I'm lazy. Right? That type of person. Allah musta'an. I had a Muslim tell me one time, yeah, it's hard for me to fast on Ramadan. I said, Akhi taqillah, why? He said, I'll be fasting, man, I get hungry. That's Allah musta'an. I said, that's not mushaqqa, ya shaykh. That's not difficulty, man. What are you talking about? The shaykh, they mentioned, you got a person got to have a true difficulty, a medical reason, medical ailment that doesn't allow you to. He said, I get hungry. I said, come on, man, fear Allah. What do you mean? Allah musta'an. Like, so a person, out of laziness, he doesn't fast, then what's said about this individual? Now, the shaykh, he says, يعني, هل يكفر أم لا? Does he become a kafir or he's not a kafir? The shaykh, he says, وَالصَّحِيح, the correct opinion, أَنَّهُ لَا يَكْفُرُ, he does not become a kafir. He's not a kafir. Now, he says, وَأَنَّهُ, and I want you to write this down. This is a qa'idah right here. Write this down. أَنَّهُ لَا يُكْفَرْ الْإِنسان بِتَرْكِ الشَّيْء من أركان الإسلام سوى شهادتين والصلاة. Because a person does not become a kafir by leaving off and abandoning anything from the pillars of Islam except the shahadatain and the salah. If a person said he don't want to say the shahadatain, he's not a Muslim. Not a Muslim. He leave off the shahadatain, not a Muslim. Right? But and if you leave off the salah. Now, not Muslim. Now with the salah, we know there is ikhtilaf. We don't want to get too much into it because it'll draw away from what we really want to talk about right now. But the strongest opinion, and when you hear strongest opinion, understand it's nasbi. As the Alama Sheikh Muhammad Aman al-Jami mentioned, whenever you hear anybody say Juyaanee qawl rajih, the strongest opinion, that's nasbi, meaning to them. Because the strongest opinion to me may not be the strongest opinion of somebody else. But the strongest opinion to me, as it relates to the issue of is a person a kafir if he don't pray or not, then it is like Al-Alama Sheikh Salih Abdis Salaam he mentioned, is that not praying is kufr. Period. Not praying is kufr. He says, now, how do we understand that it's possible that some people who don't pray are still Muslim? He said, because not praying is kufr. Just like praying to other than Allah is kufr. If a person prays to a wali from the awliya, that's kufr, correct? No one debates that. That's shirk, it's kufr. This makes you a kafir. No one debates that. But how many of the Muslims in the world pray to saints? How many Muslims in the world pray to their awliya? The Sufi people, they pray to their awliya, dead in the grave. They pray unto them. Now you have ignorant Muslims, they pray to the Prophet ﷺ. You see them in Medina facing the opposite direction of the Qibla, praying to the Prophet ﷺ. Now, do we say all of these Muslims are kuffar? No, because we not khawarij. You understand what I'm saying? No, we don't say they're kuffar. Why? Because they may have an excuse. Because see, in order for kufr to fall upon a person, right? As Sheikh al-Bani mentioned, it's qaida, write it down. Is that a person has to fall into kufr, right? He falls into kufr, meaning he does kufr. Then the proofs and evidences are established against him. Number 2, proofs and evidences are established against him. The person understands the proofs and evidences established against him. Because the proofs and evidence can be established, but if they don't understand what's going on, then they still have an excuse. Okay? So they have to understand the proofs and evidences, right? And then if they're consistent and obstinately remain upon the kufr that they was doing after knowing that what they was doing is kufr after the proofs have been established against them, then kufr falls upon them. Then they become kuffar. That makes sense? So in other words, all of the preventative factors have to be removed and the proofs and evidences have to be established. From the preventative factors is that what? Is that a person is ignorant. He doesn't know. If a person is ignorant, then he's not a kafir. Now, the vast majority of the Muslims in the world who do this, we can safely say what? They're ignorant. They don't know. They're ignorant. Right? Also, from the preventative factors is that if a person was given a false interpretation, if one of the ulama su, the evil ulama, taught them falsely, telling them you can pray to the awliya and it doesn't negate your Tawheed, it's in line with Tawheed, because they tell them that Tawheed just means that Allah is our Rabb. That's all Tawheed mean. But you can maybe pray to someone else so they can get you closer to Allah. It doesn't infringe upon Tawheed, because the meaning of La ilaha illallah is La Rabba illallah, La Khaliq illallah, so on and so forth. So they teach them a wrong meaning. So these people do it while saying La ilaha illallah because they don't believe that what they're doing infringes upon the kalima of La ilaha illallah. So they've been lied to. They've been tricked, bamboozled, hoodwinked. Right? So these individuals, they're not kuffar because they have an excuse. So on and so forth, to the end of what the excuses are. So the excuses have to be removed, and then the proof has to be established, and then they become kuffar. Now, this is the principle. Now, and this is very important, right? I can't overstate this. Is that it's incumbent to know that principles inside of the religion are derived from the text. That's important, because we live in a time where people get put into a jam, they get cornered, and they just start making up principles to get out. Newly invented principles. You understand? The ulama they warn against. Stay away from these people making up principles in times of fitna. Principles that ain't nobody never heard about ever before right now. You understand? Yesterday was something different. Now you get in a jam. Oh, but the principles say, what principles? I ain't heard of principles before. What are you talking about? That's new. Ain't nobody before you heard of that. You ain't said that last year. You ain't said it the year before. Now it's a principle since when? Since you just made it up. Okay, got it. Anyway, principles, the real principles are derived from the proofs and evidences. So, where do we get this understanding from, that a person has to fall into kufr, then the proofs and evidence established upon them before they become a kafir? Where do we get that from? Allah Ta'ala, He says, وَمَنْ يُشَاقِقِ الرَّسُولِ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا تَبَيَّنَ لَهُ الْهُدَى. Whoever goes against the messenger after clear guidance is made known to them. نوليه ما ويتبع غير سبيل المؤمنين, and they follow a way other than the way of the believers. نوليه ما تولى ونصليه جهنم وساءت مصيرا. We will leave him to what he left himself to, enter him into Jahannam, with a worst of final abodes. The shahid is Allah Ta'ala says, من بعد ما تبين له الهدى, after clear guidance is made known to him. Allah Ta'ala just didn't say whoever goes against the Prophet, the messenger, من شق الرسول من بعد, من شق الرسول ويتبع غير سبيل المؤمنين. Allah Ta'ala didn't say that. Allah Ta'ala didn't say whoever goes against the messenger and follows way other than the way of the believers in the ayah. But Allah Ta'ala says, بعد ما تبين له الهدى, after clear guidance was made known to him, showing that what? It has to be established, the hujjah. The person has to be shown that you're going contradictory to the Prophet ﷺ. You're going contradictory to the way of the Sahaba. You're going contradictory to the way of the believers. Now, so this is where we understand it has to be proofs and evidence established against them. But ala kulli hal. So if a person don't pray, he just don't become a kafir because he didn't pray. Because what? It has to be proofs and evidence established against them, showing them the status of the prayer and the importance of the prayer, and how the difference between us and them is the prayer. So the one who was left the prayer, the Prophet ﷺ, he said what? فَقَدْ كَفَرْ. The one who was abandoned the prayer, he has become a kafir. Right? But it has to be established against the proofs and evidences. So just merely not praying doesn't make a person a kafir. But he still fell into kufr, because not praying is kufr. Makes sense? So if a person leaves the shahadatain and leave off the salah, then this is kufr. But the rest of the arkan of Islam, if a person never make hajj, he has the money to make hajj, he's physically capable, but he doesn't make hajj nor umrah, then he's not a kafir, he's a sinner. Naam. Being like this decrease his iman, no doubt, but he's not a kafir. Naam. A person doesn't pay zakat, he's stingy, he don't pay zakat, he's not a kafir. Even though he never pays zakat ever, he's not a kafir. He's a sinner, he's a criminal, it decreases his iman, but he's not a kafir. Make sense? But Allah understand. It's so much I wanted to speak about, but there's no time. But the last thing I want to talk about, this is very important. This here is really. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the end of this ayah, He says, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you will attain piety. Fasting, from the benefits of fasting, is that an individual by way of it attains piety. Attains taqwah. Now, let us look at what the ulama said about this. Al-Imam Abu Faraj Ibn Jawzi قال في التفسير, he said inside of his tafsir, لأن الصيام وصل إلى التقى, because fasting is a means by way of which a person will reach taqwa. He will reach piety. He translated piety, right? Reverence, fearing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Taqwa. I want you for right now, forget the translations. Right? I want you to forget the translations. Because translations are our best effort. Best effort. You understand what I'm saying? You don't always get the full scope and scale when dealing with a translation. Translation is best effort. You understand? So forget the translation. Just keep in your mind taqwa. Taqwa. We're going to come back to that. A person, he attains piety. It's a way for him to attain taqwa while he's fasting. Why? إذ هو يكف نفس عن كثير مما تطلع إليه من المعاصي. Because a person will be stopping his soul from committing much of what comes it want to do from evil. When a person fasts, it stops the soul, and I want you to keep all this in mind. Write this down. It stops the soul from doing a lot of what it want to do from evil. A person's fasting right now, right? That fasting is going to stop him from doing evil stuff. You understand? Also, وقيل, and it's been said, لعلكم تتقون محظورات الصوم, so that perhaps you stay away from those things that should be stayed away from while you're fasting. So a person will avoid those things that he should avoid while he's fasting. But that makes sense? خير. Also, قال العلامة عثيمين أي لأجل أن تتقوا الله, so that you can fear Allah. That the fasting has been written upon us so that we can fear Allah. Now, لأن الصيام جنة, because صيام, it is a protection. It protects us from al-ma'asi. It protects us from sin, and thus it is a protection from the fire. لأن, now I want you to pay very close attention. Protection from the fire. لأن من صام رمضان إيمانا واحتسابا غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه. Because whoever fasts Ramadan out of iman and anticipation of the reward, then he will be forgiven of his previous sins. A person forgiven of his previous sins, he has no sins. Does that sound like a person that's going to go to hell? Huh? No. So fasting in Ramadan is a means by way in which a person could escape hell. So it's a protection from the hellfire. By fasting Ramadan, by doing a good deed, is a protection from the hellfire. I want you to keep that in mind too. Inshallah ta'ala, I'm throwing you dots, but we're going to connect the dots soon, inshallah ta'ala. So remember, staying away from sin and transgression, this is from taqwa. Doing the righteousness, this is from taqwa. Naam. Taqwa. Right. قال الشيخ عثيمين لعلكم تتقون, so that perhaps you fear, or so perhaps that you have taqwa, من أجل التقوى, because of taqwa. نعم. وهي حكمة, you're fasting so that you can get the taqwa, and this is the wisdom من إيجاب الصوم, from making fasting obligatory. يدل على هذا, and what is points to this? And I want you to pay close attention so you can see the beautiful mind of Shaykh Uthaymeen. You understand that? His deep understanding. He said, this is the reason that the fasting has been made wajib, so that we could attain the taqwa. And what points to this is the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Man lam yada' qawl az-zur wa 'amal bihi, falaysa lillah haja an yada' ta'amahu wa sharaba." That whoever does not leave off false, evil speech and actions in accordance to it, then Allah is in no need that he leave off his food and his drink. Allahu Akbar. Person now, you may say, what's the connection? Right? Because Shaykh Uthaymeen is a genius. You understand? Rahmatullah alayhi. Is a genius. Allah Ta'ala bless him with basira. Deep, profound understanding of the religion. But to better understand this aspect, because whoever doesn't leave off evil, filthy speech and action in accordance to it, Allah don't need for a person to leave off his food and his drink. Because fasting, what? The purpose and the intent and the goal of fasting is not to leave off food and drink, but it's to leave off false speech and actions in accordance to it. The purpose of fasting is not to leave off food and drink, but it's to leave off the haram and that which Allah hates and is not pleased with. That's the purpose of fasting. Now understand this. If a person can leave off food and drink, which is obligatory outside of the time of fasting, if you can leave off that which is halal outside the time of fasting, then undoubtedly you should be able to leave off that which is haram, what you shouldn't be doing never anyway. That makes sense? Yeah. Right. So fasting is a training ground. Now, let us understand, so we can understand better why and how Shaykh Uthaymeen was able to connect these two concepts together. Is because what? Is because what is taqwa? What is taqwa? We say fear of Allah, right? But then they say reverence, correct? But it's deeper than that. That's why I'm saying the translation is like best effort. At-taqwa, lugha, fil lugha. Let's just start with the lugha. In the language, taqwa means al-hadar. Hadar, to beware of something. Watch out for it. You call at-taqaytu shay. At-taqaytu shay. I what do you say? How you say it in English? I took caution from something. Beware of something. I took caution from that. I watched out for it. Right? That makes sense now?
Beware or be-aware?
No, beware. Beware. Caution, danger. Beware. Right? So a person, he takes caution from something. This is taqwa. In the lugha. This is one aspect of taqwa from the lugha. Another aspect of taqwa from the lugha, which might make it maybe a little more clearer, is that at-taqwa here is اتخاذ الوقاية وهي الحفظ الشيء مما يضر. Is that taqwa is to take a protection. Another aspect of taqwa is that you take a protection. You protect something from that which will harm it. So this is why I say hadar. I'm going to beware of something. Why? I'm going to beware because I don't want it to get harmed. Like a person, he's going to beware of where he put his foot. He's not going to put his foot in a bear trap. Right? He's going to have hadar minhu. He's going to be cautious. Why? Because he know he put his foot in the bear trap, he's going to mess his foot up. It's going to hurt his foot. So in protection of his foot, he ain't going to step in a bear trap. That makes sense?
Yeah.
You understand? But this is from what it means taqwa, that a person, he takes caution, he bewares of something, he takes a shield, in other words. And this enters into al-asla taqwa, the ulama they mentioned. Al-asla taqwa here, and yaj'al al-abd baynahu wa bayna ma yakhafu wiqaya, is that a person takes between himself and between that which he fears a protection, a screen. If a person grabs a shield, right? Why he grabbing that shield? Because he's protecting himself from the tomahawk or from the sword. But he don't want to get hit by it. So he puts between him and that which he fears a barrier. This is the origin of taqwa. You with me? The origin of taqwa is that a person takes between himself and that which he fears a barrier, a screen, protection. So what is the protection now? At-taqwa, as the ulama they mentioned it, from the greatest definitions of at-taqwa, if you want to say istilahan, فلا بأس, is that what? At-taqwa an ta'amal بطاعة الله على نور من الله ترجو ثواب الله. Is that ثواب الله? Is that a person does obedience? A person is obedient unto Allah out of light, nur, meaning ilm, upon knowledge from Allah, desiring the reward of Allah. Now, is that a person, he does righteousness, he does the good actions, he does obedience upon nur, upon light from Allah, nur meaning knowledge, upon knowledge from Allah, desiring the reward from Allah. Naam. Also, وَأَنْ تَتْرُكَ مَعْصِيَةِ اللَّهِ مَعْصِيَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَى نُورٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ تَخَافُ عَذَابَ اللَّهِ. Is that he stays away from that you will stay away from. Disobedience unto Allah upon light from Allah, meaning upon ilm. A person knowingly stays away from something. Allah Ta'ala says thing is haram, so he knowingly stays away from it because Allah Ta'ala says haram. Prophet made a thing haram, and he stays away from it because the Prophet conveyed to him that is haram. To the end. Nah, makes sense? He stays away from it, what? Fearing the punishment of Allah. He fears the punishment of Allah. Makes sense? So when one looks at taqwa, what does it mean to have taqwa? Then they understand first and foremost what enters into taqwa is performing the obligations, the acts of worship, performing the ibadat. This is by way a person can get taqwa. Because if a person is scared of Allah's punishment, if a person is scared of Allah Ta'ala being angry with them, being displeased with them, and so on and so forth, then what's the best screen that you can bring between you and Allah's anger? Is what? Is to do what He told you to do. It's to worship Him and Him alone. So your aqeedah gotta be straight, you gotta be upon the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and you gotta bring forth the righteous good deeds. This is how you bring a screen between you and the punishment, is by doing righteousness, by doing righteous good deeds. If one will reflect upon that, and they go back to the first command in the Qur'an, the first obligation in the Qur'an, Allah Ta'ala, He says, Ya ayyuhan nas, another address talking to all the human beings. Ya ayyuhan nas, i'budu rabbakum alladhi khalaqakum walladhina min qablikum la'allakum ish tattaqoon. O mankind, fear your Lord who created you, and those who came before you, so that perhaps you will. Afwan, lala. The translation is, O human beings, worship your Lord. Worship your Lord. Naam. O human beings, worship your Lord who created you, and those who came before you, so that perhaps you will get what? Taqwah. Taqwah by way of what? Ibadah. I'budu. Worship who? Rabbakum, your Lord, who created you and those who came before you, so that you can get taqwah. So you can get what? You can get your screen of protection between you and what you're fearing. The adhab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's by way of what? The ibadah. If a person wants to have a screen between himself and Allah's punishment, then you do that by what? By worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. By praying, by fasting, by giving charity, so on and so forth. This is how you get a screen between you and Allah, Allah's punishment. That makes sense? Also, by staying away from sins and transgression. By staying away from sin and transgression is how you avoid Allah's punishment. So what is going to be your screen of protection between you and Allah's punishment is that you avoid sins. Just like you will avoid that bear trap, because you don't want to get your foot hurt. You avoid sins, right? Because you don't want to be burnt in the fire. You know, if a person say bear trap fire, you rather bear trap, correct? You know what I mean? You rather bear trap. Right. So if you want to keep your whole body safe, then what? You stay away from the sin. And this is why when they asked some of the Salaf, and they said from the Umar anhu about what is the taqwa, and they explain that what it's like if you're walking down a trail laden with thorns, you watch where you put your foot. Something Abu Hurairah and the like, the Salaf, is that you watch where you put your foot. Why? Out of protection for your foot. Right. So you got the concepts, right? So the poet, what the poet said, he said, خَلَّ الذُّنُوبَ صَغِيرَهَا وَكَبِيرَهَا فَذَلِكَ التُّقَى وَاصْنَعْ كَمَاشٍ فَوْقِ الْأَرْضِ بِالشَّوْكِ يَحْذَرُ مَا يَرَى وَلَا تَحْرِقَنَّ صَغِيرَةً فَإِنَّ الْجِبَالَ مِنْ حَصَى. Right? He said, what means? Stay away from the sins, the little of it and the big of it. That's taqwa. He said, and be like the one who walks on a path filled with thorns. يَحْذَرُ مَا يَرَى. Remember, a taqwa hadar fil lugha is that he takes hadar from what he sees. A person walking down a thing of thorns, he's not going to just step haphazardly because he don't want to step on a thorn. Right? He don't want to step on a thorn. So he's going to take careful. He's going to watch where he put his foot. He's going to be careful. He's going to put his foot in the right place where there's no thorns. And then he said, and do not underestimate, do not devalue the small sin. Do not underestimate the small sin. He said, because verily the mountains are comprised of smaller rocks. You understand? A person, the small sin is nothing. Small sin is nothing. They accumulate. Boom, that's it. Like a grain of sand. If I say, hey, put your hand out. You put your hand out. I put 1 grain of sand. You'd be like, that's nothing. Okay, I give you 2, 3, 4. You still, that's nothing, man. You thought you were gonna say something. Okay, now by the time I get to 100,000 grains of sand, different story, right? A million grains of sand, now it done covered you and your whole body. It's different, right? But a grain of sand by itself, nothing. But accumulatively, a whole lot. Likewise, the sins. Don't underestimate the small sin, because verily what? The mountain is from small rocks. They accumulate. So leaving off the evil enters into what? Taqwah. That's how you gain your protection between you and Allah Ta'ala's punishment. Allah Ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, la tuqaddimu bayna yadillahi wa rasulih, wattaqullah. O you who believe, do not proceed in front of Allah, do not proceed before Allah and His Messenger, and fear Allah. Showing us that what? That not proceeding, not making statements and actions, as Sufyan al-Thawri mentioned, that going in front of Allah Ta'ala, bil qawli wal amal, by saying statements before we know what's the statement we should say, by taking beliefs, before we know what's the proper belief we're supposed to have. Don't do an action until you know what is the ruling from Allah and His Messenger. Do not proceed yourself in front of Allah and His Messenger. This is what enters into a person having taqwa. Because when a person does this, he's able to establish a barrier between himself and between the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Naam. Ibn Abbas, he said, La taqulu khilaf al-kitab wa sunnah. Don't speak with that which contradicts the book and the sunnah. This is from what? Taqwa. Don't contradict the book and the sunnah. In other words, comply to the book and the sunnah. So compliance to the book and the sunnah, then this is what? Taqwa. Naam. Right. Allah Ta'ala, He says, Ittaqullah haqqa tuqatih. Fear Allah the way He should be feared, as they translate it. Meaning, have the right taqwa that you're supposed to have. Nah, I'm almost done. Right. A. Yuta' fala yu'sa. Obey Him and do not disobey Him. Yuzkara fala yunsa. Remember Him and do not forget Him. Wa yushkara wala yukfar. And He's to be thanked and not and gratitude shown unto Him, and He's not to be shown ingratitude and ungratefulness and the like. Like this enters into the meaning of what is at taqwa. Do the righteousness, stay away from the sin. Look back to the nature of fasting. When a person fasts, by fasting, he's what? He's doing the righteousness. But while fasting, the Prophet ﷺ commanded us to do what? Stay away from lying speech and false speech and actions in accordance to it. So by fasting, he's doing the righteousness and he's staying away from sin and transgression. Don't quarrel when you're fasting. Don't yell when you're fasting. If someone abuses you, say, and I'm sorry, and I'm fasting. So on and so forth. They teach you, acclimate you to have righteous good deeds and to stay away from sin and transgression. So that enters into what? What is it? Taqwa. To remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. From the days that we remember Allah ta'ala, maybe the most in the years when we're fasting. You remember. You remember. Now, be thankful unto Allah and do not be unthankful. Do not show ingratitude. A person obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is from how we show thanks, because showing thanks is not just articulations upon the tongue, but it also enters into actions upon the limbs. So a person, he is fasting, he's showing thanks unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When he's being patient upon obedience. He's being patient and staying away from disobedience. And he's being patient upon the harms that may come to him from that which is decreed. Like the hunger pains, like the dry mouth, like the food headache, and so on and so forth. He's patient upon that. So he's showing all of the aspects of what? Of patience, and he is being thankful unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we know that Imam Ahmad, he said what? He said, as-sabr nisfan. He said al-iman nisfan. He said that iman is two halves. Nisfuhu sabr, nisfuhu shukr. Half of it is patience, half of it is being gratitude, being thankful unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What's the dalil? Is the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, amr al-mu'min. That is amazing, the affair of the mu'min. Khalasatan, skip to the end of the hadith. In asabahu sarra shakar فكان خير له وإن أصابه ضراء صبر فكان خير له. Is that the Prophet ﷺ said that the status and the situation of the believer is amazing. The believer, the one who has iman. Then he mentioned two things, right? In connection to this, there was another sentence between that, but in connection to this, just skipping to the end because of time. Like, you with me? Okay. He said, if he is tested with good times, he's thankful. That's shukr. It's thankfulness. right? And that's better for him. And if he is tested with difficulties, darra, things he don't like, distasteful things, calamities, he's what? Sabr, then he's patient, that's better for him. So that's the two halves of iman, shukr, sabr. That's where Imam Ahmad got that from, right? So when a person examines, he looks at fasting, he sees this there. He sees it there. Thankfulness unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by obeying Him, being compliant to fasting, staying away from food, drink, relationships with one's spouse, and sabr in all of the categories of sabr. You see how outstanding fasting is? Ala kulli hal. But do you see, when you understand better the dynamic and the nature of what is taqwa, how fasting is what? So you can fear Allah, so you can have taqwa. So you can have taqwa. Now, we done said all that to say is that what? When you look now, what is taqwa? You see how the translation is best effort. Best effort. Well, best effort. But when you understand more in depth, then you realize and you maybe can appreciate more how the connection and relationship between fasting and between taqwa. Juyaanee, this is from what I wanted to present to the brothers. We went on long enough, way longer than we had anticipated. Please, Juyaanee, forgive me for being long-winded, because we know, as the Masjid they mentioned, خير الكلام ما قل ودل لا تطل فيمل, that the best of speech is what is short and to the point. Don't be long-winded, because then you cause boredom. People get bored, start daydreaming like, I wish he shut up. So على كل حال نكتفي بهذا القدر, وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين, وجزاكم الله خيرا.